Hello, friends. Welcome to this live. My name is Elena Motonono. I work with online language teachers, helping them build sustainable businesses and specifically moving away from one-to-one classes to something that's more sustainable, which means you will be working less but making the same amount or more. Now, it's not about creating courses because courses are really difficult to manage in the beginning. It's about different modalities or formats of online language teaching that may include teaching through voice chats or teaching through Google Docs, depending on which skill you want to teach. And today, I am here to talk about three types of audio courses that you create. You might be at a point where you're like, I really would love to create a course, but there's many materials out there. I don't know even to where to get started. I wanted to let you know you're not alone because a lot of online language teachers deal with exactly the same kind of issues. There's a lot of overwhelm, a lot of materials, a lot of software, a lot of investment, or at least that's what we perceive we have to have in order for us to have a successful course, which means we need to have very specific software to create worksheets, to create materials, videos, editing, and putting it all together on a platform that is paid, and you pay a certain specific amount a month, and sometimes it's a lot. So not only do you spend all this time in your margin trying to create something, right? Then you have to put in a lot of money to make sure that it is sellable, or at least that's what we're told, right? In order for it to be sellable, it needs to be big, it needs to be, quite valuable, it needs to have all these bells and whistles. And so I'm here today to talk about one modality that I absolutely love, a type of online language course that you can put together literally in 5 days. And I will be teaching you how to do that in my upcoming challenge, the 5-day challenge on how to create an online an audio course, which you can totally run through a voice chat app. I will be showing you how to do it all in Telegram. In fact, you will be joining the challenge, and I will be sending you materials and lessons as audio lessons, and you will feel what it's like to be a part of an audio course. There will be a chat where you can ask me questions when you have ideas as to how to what course to create and what to include there. I can give you feedback. There will be feedback from other participants. There's always quite a lively discussion there. And it's an incredible opportunity for you to not just dream up uh, your course, but to actually get it done. And all of my lessons that I release every day, they're short, they're manageable, they are easy, they follow a template. I give a lot of examples so you can put something together, literally a draft in 5 days. Some of the people that have taken the challenge have already created a course and sold it. It's insane, I know, but it is incredibly powerful. And the experience is so empowering when people come to you and you're not sure whether or not you will be able to accommodate them. You have an audio course and you will be able to offer it to your students and to your larger audience. So if you are interested, I want to invite you to join. In the description, there's a link where you can purchase the ticket and be a part of it. But in today's live, I'm going to talk about three types of audio courses that you can create. And why am I talking about three types of audio courses? Is to make the process of choosing much easier, because you can take three of these and then decide for yourself, okay, what is going to work for my audience? Now, some teachers get really overwhelmed with my audience. I don't have an audience. If you have one-to-one students, and if you have a way that these students find you, whether by word of mouth, or maybe you have some kind of advertising going somewhere, maybe you have a social media account, maybe you have a podcast, there is a way that your students find you somehow. This is your audience. I'm not talking about some audience that you have to build in the future. And really, this is not the point. Creating a course is different from selling. And therefore, this challenge is only about creating, is only about putting it out there. But we will be talking some things about or sharing some things about the audience. But if you start like getting worked up too early about like, oh, I don't know if I have an audience, you already have an audience. People you have helped with your work, people that have told other people about your work, people that have brought you new students, right? This is your audience. And if you look at your audience, you can kind of assess where they are and what you can create for them. Now, if you do not have an experience, it so happens that you will pretty much um, give them the responsibility of choosing which course to create. My very first course that I created was on tenses, English tenses. I'm an ESL teacher. In the past, I taught ESL to everybody. Then I switched to become an accent trainer until I moved into coaching. But when I was an ESL teacher and I kind of got to the ceiling very quickly, the earning ceiling very quickly, I had a lot of students. I was teaching all the time. And I couldn't say no. And I thought, oh, wouldn't it be a great idea to create an online course? And that was about 12 years ago. And that was when online courses were only like beginning to come to the stage. Everything was still very new. And I did not know anything about this. There was very little coaching available for online language teachers. So I pretty much listened to coaching to people in other industries. And while there are lots of similarities, there are lots of differences as well. So when a person, like, let's say, that are teaching all the industries about creating a course, they say, find something that's valuable for your students. Well, good luck. And the way I was doing that when I was listening to that specific person telling me, okay, this is how you do it. I went to my students and I asked them, so what seems to be the problem? And of course, grammar was the problem. Grammar is always the problem. You can never go wrong with grammar, right? Now, the idea is, the issue is then how to create a course that is not going to be overwhelming, right? And mine was totally overwhelming because I decided, well, if I want to go into it, I'm going to go and create as many videos as I can on the subject of tenses, English tenses. And it took me quite a while to record it, and then I put it together as a course. I also moved it later and made it into a book, which was a little more successful than the course. But the course at the time was also costing me a lot of money because it was on a platform that cost like about $100 a month. And because I wasn't selling, I did not know how to justify that kind of spending. So I took it down. And so many teachers, when they start out, they hear from like some gurus on internet to telling you, go to your students, go to the people you're working with and ask them, what do they need? Okay, so, but the problem is with online language teacher is when you go to your students, there's too many things that the students need. They need grammar, they need pronunciation, they need this or that. But even, let's say, even if they give you the direction of grammar, it is quite a lot to put all the tenses into one grammar course. That is a lot. This is a course that is going to be too bulky for you to create and most likely will be very difficult to release. And this is the course that is going to be very difficult to sell and for students to complete. And I find a lot of teachers, because I connect with teachers, online language teachers on Instagram too, where people are really overwhelmed with, all the dozens of videos that they have to make for their course. And they're like, we don't know. It's so overwhelming. And that's what happens when you just go to your students and say, hey, what do you need? And they tell you, I need grammar. I don't know. And we kind of take the responsibility because we don't know how to narrow down the topic, how to narrow down your course. And so we take something, definitely a bite too big for us to chew, and we never create a course. And so in my upcoming challenge, I am in lesson one talking about three types of audio courses, and I will share these with you. I will give more examples, obviously, in the challenge. But the reason I share these three types of courses is to eliminate this choice of course, like where you go and the process of choosing the course, where you go to your students, say, "What do you need?" The students say, I need pronunciation." And then you're like, "Okay, E or E, ship or sheep." And then you go on through all the minimal pairs, which are 20 plus, and then you go into diphthongs and who knows what. And by the time you're done, you have a course that has 100 videos that you can barely complete, not to mention your students can finish. Um, oh, it didn't go through. Let me see. Let's see. I am going to quickly check. Try this link. Hopefully it will go through. Okay. If it doesn't, let me know. Okay. Hopefully it will though. Yeah, let me know if you can't. I can connect with you. You can email me and I can send you the link. Anyway, thank you for joining the challenge though. So I'm going to talk about three types of courses that are going to work very well in the format of an audio course. Number one, the type of course, I call it the so-called prep course. And it can be anything. There are lots of examples of that, but this is like an introductory kind of course or prep course, I call it. You can include in this course the talk about tools, the how-tos, how to work with you and how to do this or that about language learning. Some of the things when it comes to the actual language learning process is what you want to include in this course, just that. So let's say you can talk about how to learn a language successfully. It feels like it's not that big of a deal to us because we have been learning languages our entire lives. But the students that have no context and, oh, yeah, great. Thank you for signing up. Okay, so, but the students that don't have the context, right? Students that are that never learned a language, they find it difficult to know exactly how to go about this. So, a course, an audio course on uh, how to learn a language, how to build your routine, how to build time into your life to learn a language is a fantastic way to help your students. And it also prepares them to work with you because you don't want to work with somebody who comes to your lesson and says, if they do, if they don't like cancel last minute, comes to your lesson and says, well, you know what, I'm not sure that, I did all the work and I didn't have the time, et cetera, et cetera. So, this could be one. Another one is the tools that you're using to learn the language. So even the things or apps, the overview of different apps, the pluses and the minuses, how they can use them. Now, teachers are afraid sometimes. Not no, it's not for everybody, right? I probably would not necessarily create a course on that subject, but some teachers are quite nerdy in that, and they can see their students using apps instead of a teacher, right? Some teachers are afraid of talking about apps because they feel like if they talk about apps in their course, then the students will just take apps and run wild with them and never come and hire them. But that is not true because if you are able to show the value of each app and how it can be used to support their lessons, they will see a bigger picture and they will stop hoping that Duolingo is going to make them fluent in, so many months or even a year. A lot of people get stuck on those big platforms and apps, thinking that they're going to give them something that is only going to be possible when they have a teacher or a guide. So when you create a course like that that explains to people, you take an overview of 5 major apps, for example, that people use. You actually dive into them and show to students how they can use them. Then they will be more prepared and they will be like, oh, okay, that's why I can't get fluent with this app. I'm going to use it to support my learning, but I am going to choose you, my teacher, to teach me how to get to fluency. Um, this is a fantastic course, just like the introduction. Another really good one, specifically if you have background in coaching or perhaps in psychology or therapy, I really recommend that you do a course on motivation, how to find motivation. I mean, aren't all of our students like, oh, I'm not motivated to learn the language. I'm not motivated to do this or that. When you have an audio course that teaches them about motivation, even simple things like intrinsic or extrinsic motivation, motivation based on values, how we find values, what are some of our values, how can we create a routine that is not like based on self abuse and self flagellation for language learning, but actually the routine that is driven by values and deeper meanings. And all of these things, of course, are possible for you to put together in an audio course, in a short, small audio course. And your student will be more aware of how this process of learning happens, how the process of motivation happens. And that's all you will have in your audio course. You don't need to go into anything. So these are the so-called prep courses. I call them prep or intro courses because these are, courses that will allow your students to get more familiar with your work, with the concept of language teaching and language learning, with your personal values, with your beliefs and teaching philosophies. And it doesn't have to be big. That's another thing. And in one of the lessons in the challenge, I talk about how to make this course super um, manageable for you to create. I actually give a template of a lesson and of a course, and you can just kind of go through that. All right. So the second type of course that I recommend is the skills and new knowledge, and it's simplified. So the second one is where you actually take and one specific area of language learning and introduce it to your students with audio exercises. And here it's very important. I would say that this would be good for students that are already like A2, maybe, like really advanced A1, if I can say so, close getting to B1. And they can speak, they can probably understand some of what you are trying to communicate, but they still need a little bit of a system. And this is where this type of courses creates like this basic foundational system. The key here is not to overdo it. So if you're doing a pronunciation course, do not do it on all the minimal pairs, right? Do not do it on all the possible things that you will see. And minimal pairs is something that comes from the English language. I am not aware of other languages, but that's how, it's usually taught, right? Minimal pairs and, all these things. Do not just take a huge textbook that you have in pronunciation and totally bring it into your course. Take one segment that you find very important where people struggle, for example, maybe pronunciation of diphthongs. And it's very important also to not just turn it into this, what we call phono lab. I don't know if you were in university, if you had labs. We didn't anymore, but we did do these exercises where you like repeat after the same thing over and over. And it's very important that you don't just focus on repeating diphthongs. Like this is, your audio course is about repeating words with diphthongs. Like, no, it's not necessary, but it's very important to bring those words into context and to give your students as much context as possible. Another type of courses like that could be, If you're going for grammar, that's fine. You can take a sequence or a cluster of, um, let's say, grammar points. So maybe you can do just how to talk about the verbs to use or the forms to use when you talk about the present tense, right? Maybe you talk about you can do research to see which verb tenses and forms are used in English most of the time, like 80% of the time. I'm sure it's going to be something like present continuous, past simple, and whatever. So then you can use this stats to show to people, okay, I'm going to help you remember all this. Or you can have a storytelling course where you focus on learning past tenses and memorizing past tenses in an interactive way through stories and storytelling. And for those of you teachers who really enjoy writing and writing stories, this is going to be an incredible course, and it will be very easy to put together. So every lesson could be like a chapter from some kind of story, and then it will include certain words, and then you discuss how it works. You can have a chapter with the tenses with affirmative, and the one would be negative, and then you will have lots of questions. As you know, in English, the way it's put together, the way you form a sentence, a negative part, and the question is different from other languages. So you can focus on that, just that. Okay, so this is something I would have told myself 12 years ago when I created this humongous course where I had videos explaining the verb tense, 10, 12, 15-minute videos. Yeah, they were short, but there were so many of them. And even if a person had followed all of those videos, there was very little practice that they could have done, because and that's another point that I talk about in our challenge, is the level and the amount of input. We as teachers need to be very careful how much input we give to our students. If we give them too much because we believe that we're experts, and by definition experts know too much, you just are going to pour into them through the like water hydrant. You do not need to do that. It's too much. It's too overwhelming. I think the key to a good enough, I understand, good enough teacher and good enough coach, if you're doing coaching, is the wisdom and discernment where you know how much to give to each person and how much they're able to take. And when it comes to like massive course, because an audio course is going to be a course for many people, it's always best and safest to go with less. It's always safest to go with less, because if people will want more, well, they will hire you for classes. That is the whole point of audio courses. Or maybe they will sign up for your bigger program, which is also the point of your audio course. But if you put in too much so-called content in the beginning to showcase your expertise, you risk your student not finishing the program. And if they're not finishing the course, if your student is not finishing the course, the result that you get in the end is poor testimonials and not as much, output for the students. And that is what you do not want. You want people to go through the course and say, man, it was so amazing. And I feel so motivated because it was doable, right? So a mark of a teacher that is really insightful and really expert in their area is not in how much they can give, because there's infinity there for all of us. It's to know when to stop giving, right? Because it's too overwhelming. It can get too overwhelming, and overwhelm is not good for learning. Okay, so this is course B, or second type of course. And the third type of courses that I recommend is for students that are advanced. This is where you go and pick a topic that is higher level, like where you get into the polishing of the skills, where You talk about the complexity of the language, where you talk about the differences in tones, so to speak, the differences in maybe how you pronounce things, how you um, do intonation, the difference in intonation and how it changes the meaning. Although I think this is a little vague, but for example, how to sound more clearly in the language. So then you can talk about linking, right? A lot of students, and I remember when I was an accent coach, I had a course that was very successful. I had thousands of people that have signed up for that course, and it was focused on linking words and the patterns to link words in English. That was the only thing that I talked about, literally 5 lessons. 5 lessons with a lot of practice. And when students took, well, first of all, it was very easy to sell because it was just 5 lessons. It looked like, oh, it's easy, it's doable. But it gave people so much clarity in how they were speaking and how they were listening. So, for example, for accent trainers, if we're talking about these 5 lessons, we're introducing linking. What is linking? How are words linked in English? How they have to be linked to each other and why. Then we talk about elision, where the h's are gone. So many students would, even high level, even like advanced level, if they do not know the basic linking principles, they will still be pronouncing, let's say, h everywhere, like told her, told him, right? But in fluent English speech, we say tell her, told him. And when the students are not able to hear it, if they're not familiar with stresses and stress dynamic in English, then their listening is impeded, and then they cannot speak as clearly. So I remember when I introduced, especially this H's, the how H's disappear. For many people, it was like, oh my gosh, like I saw the light at the end of the tunnel. And people were telling me that the next day after this lesson, they would go and at work, they heard people say these teller, told him, and it made sense. They said they say this all the time, and how the linking works. And of course, I was able to take a lot of examples from the so-called like everyday life, and people appreciated this, because how often do we say told her, tell him all the time? Listen to her, to her, right? Nobody says the h, nobody pronounces the h there in English. Another thing that was really eye-opening for many students is the assimilation of sounds, right? Did you? You never say did you, but did you? And so together with that, did you and did he? That was like a big eye-opening moment, and that was done within 5 small lessons where I showed, or I talked to people which words or which sounds are not pronounced. And my sales pitch for that course was always like, I'm going to teach you not what happens in the words, right? Not how to pronounce the sound, the minimal pairs that nobody remembers. And that was actually my plight as an accent coach before I learned stress dynamics. And I did not learn it at college. It was continued education. Um, but I remember struggling with that because I was teaching translators and interpreters, and we had a lot of this like minimal pairs practices. But at the end of those, I would hear them talking, right, in groups, and they went back to pronouncing those sounds the same way, and it actually didn't matter. But once I changed my focus to the stresses, the stress dynamics, taught them to hear how many stresses and beats in each sentence, which words were stressed, which words were unstressed. That changed the way they spoke very quickly. Even though maybe the sounds in the words themselves didn't sound perfectly following the textbook, but they sounded a lot more confidently, more clearly, and they could understand speech. They could understand, the news. They could understand faster speech a lot better. And so that is something that I found very, very helpful. And in just a matter of 5 days, the student discovers this whole new world for themselves, and they are able to not just speak this way. I mean, it takes a while to develop the habit of speaking. If you, let's say, never um, got rid of the D in end, right? Coffee and tea, or you know, I'm trying to to remember one of those examples, right, where the D is not tea and coffee. Let's put it this way: tea and coffee. So we don't say and coffee. We don't stumble over the and. Why? Because and is the word that the conjunction in between other words that are stressed, and this one does not have any kind of lexical meaning. So, without getting it too nerdy, which I love nerding on the subject, and that's why I believe you should sign up for the challenge, because we have a lot of nerdiness going on there. Um, these are the things that are going to really help your students polish up their language. And I remember it really made a huge difference. This is course type number 3. Also, maybe on that level, you can talk about a deeper use of perfect tenses in English if you really love, uh, if you really enjoy teaching uh, tenses or grammar, because perfect tenses are used quite a bit. And the use of perfect tenses gives you a deeper understanding of what's happening in a conversation, and a way to express what you are trying to say with a specific shade of meaning, right? So anyway, I am super excited to again introduce you to these 3 types of courses, to make it easier for you to make a decision about, okay, which course I want to create. And those of you who are joining the challenge, you can start thinking about it right now, brainstorming. This is going to be our lesson 1 anyway. There will be more examples there, and you can already come in with your ideas. And in the chat, in our challenge, I give people feedback on their ideas. So that's super exciting. We're starting in a week, so I hope that you will join us. If you already joined, I want to ask you to, if you can, share the link. It's again in the description. Share the link in the groups, Facebook groups where you are. Maybe you have some social media presence. I would love to get more students, more teachers in there, so that they can put out courses that are actually manageable, courses that are actually completed, not the courses that were started and never finished. Okay. And I also want to make sure that fewer online language teachers get into those courses that cost a lot of money, huge investment, require a lot of investment out of you, and require a lot of time putting it together. I do not think that they are useless. I think they are brilliant and amazing. But for the first time, for creating your first product, those are too overwhelming for teachers as well, especially if you do not have the kind of experience creating courses. So start with something manageable, put it together, create it for your students, sell it, build on it, bring new, start experimenting with different types of teaching. And at a certain point, you can build on this course and make it more interactive and make it more desirable for the students. And then the first course is going to sell, the audio course will sell a bigger course. And that's how it's done, right? Even language, we don't go immediately to advanced level. There is a reason why there's an elementary level, and we have to learn some of the things there. And quite a lot of learning is happening at that stage. So I am looking forward to having all of you. Yes, too complicated to start. I agree. And I know that from experience myself, having done that, having gone through courses like that. And also, and it's so like demotivating. And then whatever you create, if you are able to create it, it's going to be just as difficult for your students to complete it. So, I mean, why are we doing this, right? So it helps to like really look at it straight in the eyes, say, okay, let's stop playing this game, right? And actually create something that is doable. I'm so looking forward to seeing you all. And I will be talking a little bit more about the challenge next week because we still have 1 week. And I'm so looking forward to May 6th when we begin. And if you can help me spread the word, would be so, so, so valuable. Thank you so much. Have a lovely weekend. And until next week, bye bye.